Hello everyone, and welcome to the channel, Ontario Law and the Older Person. And this is the first video for this channel. And thank you very much for taking a look at it. I hope what you see next will be interesting to you. So the big warning, the information provided in this video is not legal advice. It is relayed for the purposes of general information. No legal decisions should be made based on this material. Any viewer who needs legal advice should contact a lawyer. So keeping in mind, I don't know any of the particulars of any experiences any viewer is having. I can't possibly give good legal advice. The only legal advice I'll ever give, talk to a lawyer. And I know lawyers are expensive, but not nearly as expensive as everything going wrong and you having to sue someone. Now, while the title of the channel involves law, that is not the only thing we're going to be looking at. So potential topics do include laws, also court decisions, government programs, organizational policies. We will also be talking about stereotypes, ageism, elder abuse, which will always be a difficult topic and there will always be warnings in advance in those videos, scams, which a lot of times target older people, and the news, and anything else I can think of. So who is an older person? We're talking about age, and it depends on the context. So in a work environment, 45 years of age is considered an older worker. It does depend on the industry. Computer-related industries could have a younger age where a worker is considered older. And there is advice out there. Once you hit the age of 45, you should change up your resume. Take out the date that you graduated from university, college, wherever, because that date might be used to evaluate your age. I'm not saying do this because that could be a red flag. I'm just saying this is a thing that's out there. Then we have senior discounts, which are usually ages 50 and above, but of course that's completely dependent on the private industry that is offering this discount. Then we have the Canada Pension Plan. Under most circumstances, some exceptions, you have to wait until the age of 60 to start dipping into your plan. You have to start by the age of 70. There's only so long you can delay it. And then we still have the stereotype assumed age of retirement at the age of 65. Is this age relevant? This age was thought up like 100 years ago, and now with different extended length of life and people wanting to work beyond the age of 65 or having no choice, should we still have this milestone in our head at the age of 65? So yes, I am making you look at a statute right off the bat because I want to show you how different ages of retirement are expected in different professions. So I'm looking at the Courts of Justice Act, which is going to tell us when judges are expected to retire. So under Section 47, subsection 1, we have the statement, every provincial judge shall, which means it's supposed to be mandatory, retire upon attaining the age of 65 years. So you have your answer there, right? Not yet. So now we have a separate section, subsection 2, and under these circumstances, it's 70 years. We're still not done. And then in other circumstances, the age is 75 years. So what do you think of these ages? We don't know why they were picked. As you can tell, they're all over the age of 65, and we don't know why there are differences. But this is an example where reading a particular section and you get an answer, that might not be the only answer. So if you were to do research, you would have to do a little more thorough research to make sure you got the answer you need. This is going to be the last statute that I'm going to make you look at this video, but I want to find out what age firefighters are expected to retire at. So here we have the Fire Protection and Prevention Act, which doesn't sound like the title of a statute where you would find discussions about retirement, but there you are. Okay, and here we have, I've highlighted the age of 60. Now here's the thing, it's like 60 is the default position, But for one thing, this applies only to firefighters regularly assigned to fire suppression duties. That's what we see under section 53.1 subsection 1. So I've highlighted 60, but depending on the context, it could be 60 or over or 60 or younger. So now this age is against the stereotype of the age of 65. Do you think it's still relevant in this time? Do you think people can be stronger longer? And so there should be a higher limit. I just want to touch on this issue. There's going to be more discussion about it in a later video, but reasonable accommodation. Subsection 4, a firefighter shall not be required to retire if the firefighter can be accommodated without undue hardship, considering the cost, outside sources of funding, if any, and health and safety requirements. This isn't well drafted for what it's meant to do, but what we're talking about is that rights have limits. So for example, accommodation has limits, and we're going to talk about that more thoroughly about where those limits might fall between the interests of an employee versus an employer versus other employees. So people tend to forget that it's not necessarily a contest between those two parties. There might be a third party involved. Another thing we're going to look at in another video, the Human Rights Code, subsection 5. This section applies despite the Human Rights Code. So in the Human Rights Code, it's going to have a list of people you can't discriminate against based on these certain issues, but other statutes kind of give themselves an ability to opt out almost of the Human Rights Code. This is the last bit for this video where we're going to talk about when is someone considered older versus not. This is from the Government of Canada website, and this is about express entry comprehensive ranking system. So this is about people who wanting to come to Canada and stay here under a certain program, and it involves points, assigning a number of points based on different characteristics this person might have, and age is one of those characteristics. So look at the bottom of the screen, that little purple bit, core/human capital factors, that's what we're going to look at. Okay, so here are the points according to age. They're divided according to whether you have a partner or not, but that's not the point, so I'm not going into that. So if you're 17 years of age or less, 0. You get no points. The sweet spot for age is 20 to 29 years of age, and that is 100 or 110 points. And then we see at the bottom that if you're 45 years of age or more, once again, 0 points. And part of this involves whether someone can work or not. And I think 45 years of age giving you the cutoff is pretty harsh. And again, is this realistic given how much longer people are able to work and how much longer they might want to work? One of the things we'll be looking at throughout this channel, statistics, and a lot of that will be from Statistics Canada. That is an organization that does an enormous amount of research and is always pumping out reports about it. Unfortunately, the website itself has a terrible search function. It's very frustrating. You're really better off just going to Google and using as terms Statistics Canada and whatever you're looking for. We're going to be looking at a lot of research, and so it's always very important to question that research. So here are some of the factors. Who or what is paying for the study, and does that organization have a particular political bias? Who or what is conducting the study, and that's the same kind of concept. Do they have a particular bias? Are they even competent in putting together the study? Are they ethical? Then we have what are the questions and how are they asked? So I've seen surveys where the questions were clearly put in a particular order to prompt a particular response. And then how are they asked? So we still have a lot of people who have landlines versus cell phones versus an online survey versus a university putting up a flyer, hey, we're looking for these kinds of people. This can have a huge impact on the results. And then a very important factor, what is the sample? How many people? What are the characteristics? And how was the sample created? And what I have found reading study after study when it comes to impacts on older people, that the sample is usually entirely cisgendered, heterosexual, white, Canadians born in Canada with no disabilities of reasonable sound health and economic status. And this is a big problem. You have to go out of your way to find research about other groups. Now, an unfortunate thing about reports from Statistics Canada is they often, not always, but often leave out people from the sample. And there tends to be a bit of a pattern of who is left out. So this particular study, Charting Change, How Time Series Data Provides Insights on Canadian Well-Being. And this was released in 2024, September 13. So this is pretty modern material. All right, this is a note to readers. A lot of reports have this, not all do. So you go down for information that might be there about the sample. And as you can see, I've highlighted the sample. The target population for the CSS, Canadian Social Survey, is all non-institutionalized persons aged 15 or older living off reserve within the 10 provinces of Canada. So, what does that mean? So, who is not in this sample? No one living in institutions such as long-term care facilities, no one living on reservations, no one living in the territories. What might you think of these particular people? What kind of sense of well-being might they have? Another Statistics Canada report, the poverty rate and low income situation of older persons in Canada, an intersectional analysis. And now I went down again to note to readers. In this example, there's no handy shaded box for us, and I highlighted who's left out. For this study, the population sample for these services is drawn from all individuals in Canada, excluding residents of the territories, residents of institutions, individuals living on reserves and other Aboriginal settlements, and members of the Canadian Forces living in military camps. One last example, again from Statistics Canada, overview of the economic situation of older persons in Canada, 1976 to 2022. So once more, going down to note to readers, and once more I have highlighted who is not included. In this study, the population sample for these surveys is drawn from all individuals in Canada, excluding residents of the territories, residents of institutions, individuals living on reserves and other Aboriginal settlements, and members of the Canadian Forces living in military camps. So that's just 3 examples. There are a lot more. And we can see the pattern of who is being left out. And I think these people might have very different answers from everybody else. And I think this is a big problem. So the idea being, whenever you read information about research, think who's in the sample and who is left out. And then context, it really matters. So looking at family structure, how it's changing over time, what kind of expectations are there? Difference in cultures, this is a huge deal. For example, 2 people from different cultures might be speaking English, but their understanding of the words is different. And so we can have some miscommunication here. So we really have to keep in mind the difference that a culture can make. Historical trends. Something that kind of annoys me is when people say, oh, look at this generation, it's doing this terrible thing. And if you look at history, it's like, yeah, we've always been doing that. So, focusing only in the current is not helpful. And of course, money. Who has it and what are they doing with it? Things you should avoid. Of course, stereotypes. We've all applied stereotypes to everyone else. It's not helpful. And glorifying the past. That's not helpful either. Times in the past have not been wonderful for everyone, and denigrating the future or present because it's not like the past without understanding what the past actually is, not helpful. Don't put the past on a pedestal. And that is the last slide for this first video. If you got this far, I hope you found something interesting about it, and talk to you later.